Welcome on in, golf fans. It's your boy Gsluke here with our DFS and prop preview for round 3 of the Sanderson Farms Championship. Going to get you ready for tomorrow with all of your exposure, whether it's over there on the DFS side or on props and Underdog and Prize Picks. Going to get through all the vital information that you need to go out there and have yourself a slate. Which, first off, our round 2 exposure ended up being fantastic across the board, and Showdown ended up getting quite the edge out there with our PM players. I saw a few people in the community ended up with takedowns, so that is always fantastic to see, and ended up right just under 5x ROI myself. So that combined with a triple up day over there on the prop side, ended up going out there hitting our one slip that we entered. Can't complain about that. So hopefully you guys are having a fantastic Friday yourselves and are ready to talk some golf. Whether you're on the replay crew watching this after the fact, already down there in live chat, welcome on in. Let's go after and get after it. You got Joseph down there, who's a big burger fan. I'll be right there with you. I'm a big fan myself. You got Francis down there as well, says he took down some round 2 showdowns. It's great to hear. That's just another one on top of that, by the way. Francis, you weren't even the one that I was talking about, but that's great to hear. So that's at least 3 takedowns that I know about, let alone the people that might chime in on the replay or later on in the live. So good stuff, guys, and let's try and run it back out there for round 3. Before we truly hop on in, do want to mention our sponsor for the live stream, which is our friends over there at the Ship It Nation, a great source for all your needs on DFS, on top of what we have here with golf and football. If you're somebody that plays fantasy sports out there for all the different options listed, make sure to check them out. A great resource, great projections, process-based stuff that they have over there. And code Luke10 will give you a discount off any membership. So great time to sign up, get a little bit of a discount there as well. So make sure to take advantage if you guys haven't already. But in terms of the golf course, yeah, like I said before, played just as expected. It was a little bit windier in the PM hours, but that didn't matter. Now, it wasn't a whole 1.3 shot difference like we had for round 1, but that was to be expected with the wind kicking up. Despite that, it was still 0.55 shots easier there in the PM wave. And if you take a look at our player pool from yesterday, Taylor Moore, Dunlop, a lot of the guys that we mentioned, and out there had -6, -7 kind of rounds. So it was sweet. That's why our ROI was as good as it was. And out here for round 3, it's going to be a little bit of the same. So speaking of, let's just go ahead and take a look at the forecast. And they're going to be going off of 2 sums off of hole number 1. I believe the first tee time is around 9, maybe 10 a.m. local time. And the last tee time is a little bit after 2. So quite a large range when it comes to the start and the finish. But because the PM guys were playing to an easier scoring average, that wasn't just out here for round 2. Of course, you hear yesterday, first day, the PM played even easier than what you had for today. Round 3, when you have the same kind of forecast that we had for round 2, on top of that, also the more informed and better players that are going off later in the day, I think it might even be larger than this 0.55 shot difference. So if I had to put a number on it, it might play like 3/4 of a shot easier to maybe an entire stroke easier out there in the PM wave. So we'll incorporate that. It's something that you want to consider when you're going out there and selecting players, because the later guys that are also a little bit in form might also be getting the better side of the stick. Which, speaking of, now let's talk about DFS. Let me bring up our projections and talk through how we're handling this, because I think you have to ride the line between trying to take the better players later, the guys are going to get the seemingly better conditions, and still trying to get a little bit of differentiation. Because the unfortunate part of a lot of those later starters is that they're also the chalk out here for round 3 showdown. Maybe you're new to the format, maybe you just haven't played as much recently, but the later starters for round 3 showdown are incredibly chalky. A lot of that because of their form, casuals wanting to tail those kind of performances, and oftentimes they get the short end of the stick when it comes to conditions. Not so much, right, at this kind of event where the PM wave has been playing a little bit easier. So the issue becomes you want to take as many of those guys as possible, but you can't do it in all 6 spots, because you're going to be taking like 10-15% plus owned players at all 6 spots if you do so. So what you should be doing out here for your round 3 showdown lineups is taking 3, maybe 4 players that are going off later, and then trying to find 2 or 3 diamonds in the rough that you can mix in towards the middle end of tee times. And what I'll say is that maybe around 11, maybe to 11:30 a.m. starting time is probably the ideal time to tee off. It'll be fully warm by then. The winds are going to be a little bit lower for your first hour and a half, maybe 2 hours of tee times. And those players are in that -7, -8 range. So they didn't just make the cut, but they're also not up there in contention, those players are going to be a lot lower owned than some of your chalk and are still going to get the better side of conditions. So when I say play the later starters, that doesn't mean go out there and only play chalk. I think you should be mixing in 2, maybe even 3 players that are towards the middle end of tee times. I think if you want to go for a very early starter, a -6 that just made the cut, you can do that with 1, maybe 2 players out there in a lineup, but I'm much more comfortable with the guys that are in the middle end of tee time. So make sure to bring up the tee time sheet. I would say the Goldilocks zone, the best spot for tee times would probably be like 11 a.m. Eastern out there, or I should say local time out there to maybe noon local time. So that's what I'd be looking for in players. And what you'll see with our exposure here is that I'm going to have some later starters. We're going to have some chalk, particularly towards the top end of the board, but then we're also going to have some of those mid-tier guys that we're using to get a little bit different with. So like I said, the key is to go out there and try and find the fine balance between those 2 options. And depending on the contest you're entering, by the way, that's going to change. Large field GPP, you need to be a little bit more different. So maybe it is 3 players that are going off towards the middle end of tee times. Single entry, maybe you get away with only having 2 of those players in a lineup. So keep all of that in mind as well. Let's see, any comments to catch up on? And if you have any questions, by the way, now is the time for that. Any player questions, throw them down in live chat. And also, I'm curious, who do you guys think is going to go off for round 3 showdown? Maybe it's a shots gained popper. Maybe it's somebody that's been good on moving day historically. I want you guys to comment down below. If you're watching this in replay, go ahead, comment it under the replay. Who you guys got for your top round 3 scorer. If you get it right, I'll just go ahead and give this away. You'll get a free month of the Patreon page. So if you see any comments in the live chat, by the way, they are going to be taken when somebody takes it. And then, if nobody was taken during the live stream that you wanted, just comment them after the fact. So, replay crew, you're not going to have as good a chance at that giveaway, but anyone here live, you've got first dibs. So go ahead and guess away. What do we got? Won all the late showdown contests. That's good to hear. I don't play much late showdown, but if you did that, that's pretty sweet. What's going on, Kevin Yu? Hot with the putter might be dangerous with Kevin Yu. Might be, but he's a little bit of a shaky putter. Honestly, Glover's been hot with the putter this week. Same thing with Keith Mitchell. We'll have to, in Woodland too, also gaining with the flat stick. We'll have to see what happens there. I'm assuming one of them's probably going to keep it going, and they're going to be pretty tough to beat because they're a solid tee to green player. Issue is 3 of the 4 are probably going to fall flat on their face. So if you can guess that player, then all the power to you. What's going on, Ziggy? West Coast of Florida is still dealing with the hurricane. For sure. Obviously, thoughts and prayers to everyone out there that was affected. You're trying to watch the stream for the first time. Hopefully you have some success out there. Not your first to try and take down a GPP. I'm glad that we could give you some entertainment out there, helped you take down a GPP today. And like I said, hopefully you guys could recover from that quickly. On the East Coast over here, that's where I am, and down here in South Florida, we hardly got affected. So we obviously ended up dodging a huge bullet there, but hopefully you guys get that all sorted. Woodland, okay, I like that call. You're in a molding house watching your lineups go up the board. Dude, that's the thing. When you check late and then you see a takedown, those are the best. When you don't have to fully sweat it out. You got Dunlop for it, or you're going with Hayden Springer. Okay, I like that too. And are you taking Dunlop, or are you asking about Dunlop? Just let me know, my man. All right, let's talk through a few options that I'm getting to myself. And the usual disclaimer when it comes to the quote-unquote plays on this live stream, you can choose to tail them or not, right? I'm not telling you who to play in your lineups. I'm more so giving you insight into what I'm looking for in players, right? My process out here for round 3 showdown. If you tend to agree with some of my takes, then by all means, go out there, play players, right? You can obviously go out there and use them, but I'm not telling you you have to use these players. For example, you disagree if I take on somebody, don't use them, right? That's a totally fine thing. Let's start up top. Seamus Power is coming into this field, coming into this event with some of the best worldwide form. And if you're only looking at the PGA Tour stuff, you're not getting the full picture on Seamus, because on the DP World Tour, this guy was gaining well over 2 strokes per round heading in. So I like that for Seamus. His ball striking has been excellent this week, gaining mostly with his off the tee and his approach play. And as somebody up top that has that later tee time, I'm okay taking at slightly higher ownership. So what you'll see with a Seamus famous. And then the next option we're getting to here, and Eric Cole has also been ball striking the shit out of it. In fact, he's actually losing strokes with his flat stick to this point, yet has still shot -11. All of that carried by his shots gained approach. So up top, as I said, I'm going to take some ownership, particularly because the later guys are getting the better side of tee times, and the ones that I feel the most comfortable taking at a higher ownership number. The reason why you have to, really like somebody to want to take them at 25% ownership is I'm playing them in 40 to maybe even 50% plus of lineups to go out there and get leverage. And I'm not just going to do that with any sort of slapdick. Eric Cole, by the way, has gained, I believe it's over 4 strokes per round with his approach play so far, which is by far number 1 in the field. I believe in terms of shots gained ball striking, he's up there in the top 3 as well. So these sort of guys up top that have been doing it with the tee to green play that have that later tee time are the kind of guys that I'm more comfortable taking at that kind of ownership. Moving down a little bit further, the next play is going to be one of those mid tee times that you're using for a little bit of differentiation. Now, 13.4% ownership isn't unowned by any means, but when you compare him to a Hostler that's a lot higher owned, who, by the way, Hostler's been hitting the absolute skin off the golf ball. So I don't think he's a terrible option out there for round 3 showdown. But guys like Novak are about half the ownership. So if you're starting with a chalkier guy like a Power or somebody, Eric Cole up top, you might want to use an Andrew Novak to offset that ownership. So that's why I wanted to point him out in particular. And just like the top 2 options, he's been absolutely striping it with his shots gained ball striking, gaining well into the positive in both categories. Next up, we got David Skins, who had a little bit of a slow start today. In fact, I believe he was 2 over par through his first 9 holes and ended up shooting under par by the end of his round. So not nearly the -12 that he posted out there for Thursday, but just to this point, he's one of the best players in the field out there in terms of shots gained approach. And with that momentum that he gathered on his back 9 today, I think that that's a huge positive going out into moving day. So, he had his really good round. He had his regression day the next day. Hopefully round 3 could be another one into the positive. Charlie Hoffman, one of the few early guys at -6 that I'm using in my player pool. A lot of that's ownership. He's only going to be 5% projected owned that you can see there on the projections. Of course, guys, for everything that's blacked out, check out the Patreon page. You can download these spreadsheets completely uncensored on there for just $15 a month too. So great bang for your buck over there. You get them for every single showdown slate. And there's not a lot of guys that are sub 5% owned. So that's why I want to point out a Charlie Hoffman here. And just like the other guys, you're going to get tired of hearing this. His shots gained approach has been fantastic to this point. Michael Thorbjornsen is a later starter, a little bit of a chalkier play than I'm mixing in towards the bottom end of the 7K range. And he's actually one of the only chalky options that I'm using down towards the bottom end of the board. I think if you're going to use anyone down here at over 10%, you're going to want to think twice before doing so, because unlike a Power, some of the other guys like Eric Cole towards the top end of the board, you're not going to be as confident on players down low like this. For me, though, Thorbjornsen was an outright for me this week, right? He was one of our core plays I mentioned in our video on Monday. So I think I feel a little bit differently about Thor than most people. So, in terms of taking a chalky piece, a later tee time down low, if you're looking to go out there, and especially in like single entries, I think he makes a lot of sense where you can take maybe 4 or 5 chalky guys in a lineup. Thorbjornsen can fit that kind of build quite well. And then the last player we're going to talk through here is the lowest owned of the bunch. He's at -6. He is the ball striking. He's the best example of a ball striker that we can possibly get in this field. He's gaining a bunch of strokes off the tee. He's top 5 in shots gained approach to this point, and he's losing like 2 strokes per round with the putter. So he's obviously got to find a way to get that to flip. But the ball striking stats, the tee to green stats, are exactly what we'd hope for. When he's been playing on the Korn Ferry Tour, he's been killing it in that sample size. And you can see heading in, he's number 7 in recent form ranking. So very sneakily playing some of the best golf of anybody in this field. And he's at -6. He's going to be essentially unowned. So maybe getting the worst end of the tee times. But this is the kind of play that you maybe don't use in a single entry. It's what you're using in a large field GPP lineup to get that differentiation. As I said before, you got to try and find that fine line between taking enough of the later starters and still getting different enough in some of the larger field contests. And if you're in a large field GBP, this is the kind of player that you use him, maybe one lower owned player. And that's how you go out there. You get different, you make sure you don't duplicate yourself and get the leverage you need to move up those leaderboards. So that's what I'll say about the plays. I'll see if there's any questions about specific players down in chat. If not, we're going to build one lineup together, talk you through the lineup building process, and then head over to the prop side of things on Underdog and Prize Picks. So smash that like button if you guys haven't already. Go ahead, subscribe so you don't miss any of the live streams content to come, and let's get after it. Oh, you're saying Dunlop, dude, is nails. Yeah, he's absolute nails. You're right. He started off the 3 birdies. I felt pretty good about him. I took an under on his strokes today too. He was one of the 2 props that we ended up playing. He had me worried when he bogeyed the par 5, but he bounced back like an absolute champ. So yeah, he's my guy. I've been shredding my stuff about Dunlop for the longest time now. When I saw him make a hole-in-one in person down there at the Honda Classic and he didn't flinch, I knew he was a baller. I mean, if you can make a hole-in-one and just act cool about it, you've made a lot of hole-in-ones. Let's put it that way. And he's way younger than me. He's like 8 years younger than me, and Jesus Christ, he's good at golf. What's going on? He said Novak for the nuke round. I like it. And you said smash the like button. You heard the guy. Go out there and do so, guys. All right, let's build a lineup together, and then let's talk some props. So in terms of building a lineup, we're going to do this for the large field GBP. So what I want to show you here is how different you need to get in terms of taking some of those early starters, because I think you want to jam in 4 late guys if you can. If you can find 2 early guys that are super low owned, it's just going to open up all that leverage you're looking for. So let's go ahead. We're going to start this one off with a Seamus Power. Second man in, we're going to go with Eric Cole. So we're going to go with that pretty chalky start with a 10K player and then a 9K guy as our second man in. Our third man in, we could go with Novak, but just for the sake of showing you, kind of pushing the envelope, trying to get 4 of those later starters in, I'm going to take a slightly chalkier option here. So I'm actually going to throw in a Bo Hostler at $8,200. And then we're also going to take Michael Thorbjornsen here at $7,200. So we've got 4 pretty chalky players in this kind of lineup, right? But that's going to be the case if you're going after that weather edge. If you're trying to take the later starters, a lot of lineups are going to look like this. Your last 2 spots here are where you've really got to put in the work. This is where you're going to get your differentiation, make sure that you can move up those leaderboards, and also not duplicate yourself. In terms of duplication, if you're taking some chalky guys like this, it might not be a bad idea to leave some salary on the table, but I don't know if you have to force it, especially if you take low-owned enough players out here to round this off. So a Novak could be an option, but you might really want to get different if you're starting with this kind of 4 set. Even a Meissner, you might want to take a look at. A Hubbard is getting close to that 10% mark, but he's a little bit lower owned than some of the other players in this range. Just for the sake of this, I guess let's throw in Hubbard to this kind of lineup. And then for our last man in here, we're looking for a sub 5%er. So Charlie Hoffman would make sense. That's going to keep us off of guys like a Norlander. He's closer to like 10% owned. Same thing with Taylor Moore. He's closer to like 8 to 10% owned. Our options are really a Hoffman, maybe an Emiliano Grillo if we're going to spend all of our salary. If we wanted to leave a little on the table, I think a Fowler would be usable to round out this kind of lineup. A list down here, leaving $200 on the table, I think you could potentially run in that direction. And Alex Smalley, yeah, that's probably even too highly owned down here with an Alex Smalley. He's closer to like the 7 to 10% mark out there with his ownership. You can see if you're going to start a little bit chalkier, down low, you've got to make some decisions, right? You've got to force in some differentiation, and you can't just click all of the later starters into your lineup. If you were to do so, for example, maybe rather than taking a Hubbard before, you mixed in, let's throw, there's not really a good option, I guess, in this range. It's a lot. I guess we'll go with Jaeger just for the sake of taking a later starter. Last man in, you're going to okay, I'll throw in Kevin Yu, right? Because he's starting out there in like the last half hour tee times. This lineup would be way too chalky. I mean, Kevin Yu's close to like 8% ownership. Steven Jaeger's like over 15% himself. This kind of lineup is the no-go out there in GBPs. Those last 2 spots, you've got to get a little bit uncomfortable with. So that's what I'll say about your GBP lineups. If you want to go with 3 pivots, so rather than taking Thor Bjornsson, maybe you go from him to like a 5 to 6%er. That kind of lineup is for sure going to be different. So you probably wouldn't have to worry as much as having the 4 chalky guys towards the top. But that's what we'll say about the lineup construction segment. Let's see, any last second DFS questions? If not, we're going to go through props. You took down the round one $5 single and then almost took last today. He said, thanks for all the advice. Yeah, today it was the opposite for me. So, hey, I hate to hear that for you, but our community had like 4 takedowns today. So maybe it'll be your day tomorrow, right? Best of luck out there. You got Schmid about to go nuclear, Smotherman too. Dude, I hope Smotherman goes nuclear. He's a baller. I've been saying he smothers me in money for a long time. In fact, like 2 years ago when he had his tour status, he was a showdown play almost every single slate. So I'm always in for playing some Smotherman, particularly when he's hitting the cover off the golf ball. And yeah, Schmid, maybe he's onto one over there too. So best of luck, my man. All right, let's talk through some prop stuff. So we've got the averages on the board right here. But just as I said for the round one prop stuff, it really depends on when guys are teeing off. If we take a look at the averages from round 2, it was about a 0.55 shot difference between the morning and the afternoon. In day 1, it was a 1.34 shot difference. So out here for round 3, I think the later starters where you want to take more of your positive stances, and it's not even just the weather. You've also got those players in form. And when you're going out there and entering 50-50 props, form matters. Out there in GPPs, it maybe matters a little bit less, I would say, because you're more so looking for a ceiling performance than going out there and, trying to beat 50% of the field. But in a prop format, you're only trying to be better than average, to go out there and grind out ROI. 5 to 10% is the kind of edge that you're looking to generate. Form really matters in that kind of scenario. So I think if you're going to take positive stance plays, take unders on strokes, overs on birdies for guys that have played pretty well to this point, right? Not only are they going to get better weather, but you're also going to get that form aspect as well. On the flip side, if you're going to try and find some fades, you might want to take a look at some of the early starters. It's not so much the weather. I don't think it's going to play a massive factor. It might be that half a stroke to maybe 3/4 of a stroke difference that I mentioned before. But when you add the form on top of that is where you could start to see an edge out there for props. So that's what I'll say about it. You can see the averages on here, right? Just a little bit better than 2 under par, a little bit under a 70 stroke average, about 4.5 birdies per round, about 2.25 bogeys or worse per round. And yeah, you can see the fairway and green in regulation average at the bottom as well. What I'm going to do before we fully deep dive these is bring up first prize picks to see if you have a board up. And then also I want to bring up some of the other sites like FanDuel and Caesars. So we can take a look at what they have for odds, do a little bit of line shopping, and figure out how to approach the slate because they didn't have anything up before I went live here. So we're going in blind to the prop segment, but you'll get an idea for my research. We'll talk through what I'm looking for early in my process on the board, and you're going to get truly my first reaction to this board, which is oftentimes the case with these live streams, just with the timing of it. And of course, just like the DFS sheet that you guys saw before, you guys can check out my Patreon page for all the prop exposure I'm getting to. So today it was a triple up on our props, which was pretty sweet. So hopefully we can keep that going out there for moving day. So they've got some Euro golf stuff up. Let me refresh this to see if there's any PGA. It does not look like it quite yet. And then Underdog has been copying Prize Picks' lines. So I would imagine, actually, they're first to market this time around, which is a little bit of a surprise compared to rounds 1 and 2. So yeah, we have an Underdog board. We'll be able to deep dive that together. And then, yeah, we can take a look at the Euro golf stuff. I've got, I was looking at the board before, and there were actually a few that were catching my eye. So you might want to do that, especially with the multiplier when we get to Prize Picks. Let me get a sip of water, and what are we doing? What major stats put me on Thor for a possible first-round leader? He was plus 7,000 on your online book. Well, a lot of it came down to tee time. He was going off early, and at the time, I thought that was going to be the easier side. Usually is for a tour event, right? Especially like a Monday. I thought it would be the easier side, and I bet him outright this week. So what I oftentimes do, because I've had it happen so many times in the past, where I've bet somebody to win, and then they end up first-round leader, and then by the end of the week, they're like finishing T20. Or some shit like that. I've gotten sick of that happening. So when I have a long shot like Thor to go out there and potentially be a first round leader, I usually bet them for that. So that's the reasoning. I do that a lot. I usually don't even announce it as an official bet because it's more just like a fuck around thing for me. And that would have been nice if he could have taken that home, but Skins obviously got him out there. What's going on? Ziggy said, thank you from the Tampa Bay area. Of course. And like I said, hopefully that happens quick, the recovery effort and whatnot. Best of luck out there, my man. What's going on? Antonio says, yo, what's up? You've had some family troubles. That's why you haven't been in here. Well, first off, thoughts to you on that, man. Hopefully everything's okay over there. Is the family all healthy? And that's awesome. That's great to hear, dude. That puts a smile on my face. And we're glad to have you back. You're, regular around here. So we've been missing you. So glad to have you back, dude. By the way, any questions? If you have any DFS questions, maybe you're joining us late. I will still touch on those if you have them. But the rest of this live stream, probably next 20 minutes, we're going to be focusing on props. So if you're here for that, stick around. We'll find you some props and some slips here. And let's go ahead and dive on in. So the board looks awfully similar to what they had the first few days, except maybe even the strokes are a little bit higher, which I do not agree with. In fact, oh boy, they're going to make me wild out here with some of these props. Eric Cole should not be at 69.5 strokes. That is a joke of a line. In fact, he should probably be at 68 strokes, if we're being honest. If Keith Mitchell was at 69.5, I would go nuts on that kind of combination. But Eric Cole with that ball striking, 69.5 strokes. Yeah, we're taking that under. The issue is we're going to have to try and find something to pair with it. And I guess it's not an issue, right? But a Bo Hostler would be an option. He's also really hitting the ball in terms of his tee to green play, which speaking of, guys, I'll actually just bring it up over here on Data Golf and show you guys who the leaders have been on approach play. So look at this. Number one is just under 4 strokes gained. I said 5 before. I missaid that. It was 4 strokes that Eric Cole was gaining with his approach play. That's why we like him for an under 69.5. He's losing putting, which is normally his strength, by the way, and he's still -11. And then Hostler, who hasn't been quite as good, but you can see over here, he's still gaining 1.3 strokes when it comes to his approach play, and then over a stroke per round off the tee as well. So it's not even just the approach play that's been stellar for Hostler. It's also been off the tee, and it never hurts to lose 2.4 strokes putting, right? He's a good putter, so that's kind of to be expected from Bo Hostler. So yeah, it might be those two. I guess we can look at a few other options though, right? Try and find maybe the best approach player to go out there and mix in. So Skins was at 69.5, but he is a lower tier player. So you've got to account for that when it comes to the projection. Let's see. Did they have a Charlie Hoffman prop up? Let's see. They don't have anything for Hoffman. If they had him at 69.5, I'd even consider him at the earlier tee time. Let's see. So we got Ben Cole's Glover. Let's see if Glover's at 69.5. That's maybe not the worst option. Who else? Daniel Berger. He's been playing really consistent golf. I've got to say, he's been very confident as well. If you heard his remarks after the round, you'd have to think that he's maybe the most confident player in the field there. So let's throw him in there. He could definitely be an option that we consider for this. Who else? There's Hostler. There's Hubbard. Dunlop, he was at 68.5. So it's not like I even hate an under at 68.5. I took an under on Dunlop at that number today, and he smashed. Went well under that for us. All right, let's look at the shots gained ball striking. Let me actually add that to the table. Just another metric to go out there and optimize by. So yeah, the Eric Cole's at the top there. There's Daniel Berger. So he might be the player that we end up going with, but there's Hostler as well. So you can see, right, by the way, guys, I know we didn't mention Daniel Berger as a play, but I'm playing Daniel Berger today. Hostler, by the way, I'm playing even at that kind of ownership. It's not a surprise that the 5 top tee to green players are the guys that I'm using in my lineups for tomorrow. So, and Glover too, I'm playing. I mean, I guess I'm giving away a lot of my player pool right now over there for DraftKings, but Woodland I'm playing. Lee Hodges, I mean, like, realistically down to the entire board here, except for one player that you can see I'm using out there in my lineup. So out here for props, it's going to be a lot of the same, right? We're looking for guys that are really hitting the ball well and have that later tee time. So if we were going to go by that, I like all 3 of these guys, to be completely honest. In fact, there are even other unders that I think make sense out here on books. So I didn't look at the FanDuel odds or anything like that yet, which even Glover might make sense for an under 69.5. Let's see if they have anything up. So there's Dunlop. He's just a little bit over 60.5. That is surprising considering how low the scores are likely to be. Eric Cole is -150. Okay. Gary Woodland is closer to even money. Same thing with Lucas Glover. He's a little bit closer to even money. you've got Bo Hostler at minus 125 and then Berger here at minus 120. So I guess the one that's really juiced under would be this Eric Cole prop, and a lot of that's probably because of that approach play. The other ones, though, were, I guess, just slight leans when it came to that juice. Let's look over here on Caesars / William Hill. You'll see Hostler's minus 130 over here. There's Daniel Berger at minus 125. Also, Lucas Glover there at the minus 130 mark. The guys at 68.5, by the way, I'd probably juice them under. And these guys at 69.5, I mean, if I was the one setting the lines on a sports book, I'd have them juiced even more towards the under. So I don't worry about it being a plus EV lean nearly as much in golf. The books aren't always that accurate when it comes to their projections. Who are we going to take? Hostler's in the lead. So that pressure probably makes him somebody that we're going to eliminate here. Then we've got Berger and Glover. And I guess the thing becomes, right, who has the more sustainable shots gained profile? You've got Daniel Berger gaining in every category. That's going to be tough to beat. And then you've got Lucas Glover over here pretty much doing the same, except a little bit less off the tee. And he's actually losing around the green. So just to break the tie, we're going to go with those two out there for the slip. So we'll put lucky number 7 on the slip. This is not going to be my main piece of exposure out there for these props. You guys know. If you can't tell, there's multiple accounts that I run these props on. But yeah, we'll run those two out there on the Underdog side. Let's see if Prize Picks has come along with the board. If not, I guess we'll circle over to the Eurogolf side. Of course, guys, if you want all the Prize Picks stuff that I'll probably be adding before lock, make sure to check out the Patreon page for all of that. But in terms of Eurogolf, they're going to be playing St. Andrews out there for round 3. In the weather conditions, I'll bring those up over there at St. Andrews, which, by the way, is right here. The old course is where they'll be playing. What you'll see is that it looks pretty calm if we look at this UKV model. So you'll see it's sub 8 miles an hour the entire day there. This icon, much of the same. Over here, a little bit windier on the Medio Blue. But let's break the tie with the Eurogolf website, shall we? They're probably the most accurate source because they know what weather forecast to look at. So bear with me one second while I bring that up. And if the conditions look calm here, I actually don't know what we're going to see here because they hadn't updated it when I had last checked. But let's see what we've got. So it looks pretty windy, just like they had for round 2. So, okay, that was a good thing we checked that. I mean, look at this, gust to 45 miles an hour. Holy shit. Yeah, that's quite windy. That's what they had out there for round 2. If you guys are watching the DP World Tour today, it was a lot windier than what they had for round 1. So the round 2 stat averages that you had from St. Andrews are probably pretty applicable, I would say. So let's take a look at what that looked like. So, and they're playing 3 courses. That's why we're talking about who's playing on what course. Yeah, St. Andrews today played minus 1.39. It's worth noting that all the guys that are playing St. Andrews tomorrow are the best players in the field. It's Rahm, Rory, Horschel, all the PGA guys like Lowry, on the Højgaard twins, the Fitzpatrick brothers, right? All of the actual good players. Brooks Koepka, I mean, I could keep going, right? Even all the live guys that are over there playing as well are all going to be playing St. Andrews at the same time. They're the best players. They're probably going to shoot better than a minus 1.4 scoring average. In fact, if I had to guess the scoring average, it'd probably be in that -2 to -3 range. And for a par 72 setup, that put it at a 70 to maybe 69 projection, which is why when I was looking at this board before, if it was going to be super calm tomorrow, I was going to hammer some unders. Now that we know it's going to be a little bit windier, kind of like what we saw out there for round 2, I think it's a little bit more of a fair board. So I don't know if we want to go overboard with our exposure. In fact, I'm probably not going to enter anything right now out here on this live stream. But I think if you could find some unders on, like, you know, especially like a legit guy at 69 strokes, like, you know, Horschel's been really good on the DP World Tour. Like maybe he'd even be in play for like an under at 69. You could take some selective unders. I don't think it's the kind of slate where you could just hammer unders and print over there on Euro. If you could find the right guys in form and a soft projection, I think you could make it a pretty decent slate there. So that's what I'll say about Euro. Let me refresh this one more time. Let's see if we have a PGA board. And if not, we're going to hop on out of here. Looks like we're done. All right. That's all we got for the live stream, guys. Any last second questions? Let's see. Sanderson is playing easier this year. It's not just you, Antonio. In the past, especially when it's been windier, you've seen this course play closer to like -1. So still easy, still a birdie fest for sure. But this year, it's a birdie fest and a half. Fox, Moore, and Jaeger to have a strong weekend. Okay, I like it. Tell you if I need birdies or better. So yeah, let me see if they're actually up. That's a good call over there on FanDuel. Yeah, they're not up right now. I'm assuming, I mean, they didn't have any birdie or better props up yet. That if we can get some 4.5s on legit players, I mean, that was the scoring average out there for round 2, right? Birdie or better average is 4.5. Wouldn't hate some overs there. And Ziggy said the late wave was a great call. It was. Helped us out quite a bit today. Appreciate that, man. And it's like being first in line at Vegas and everyone is the one team but you. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, dude. A lot of people played AM, PM and they got burned. I'm sure glad that we all took the right side. So that's all I've got, guys. I appreciate you guys. Hopefully you guys have a fantastic Saturday yourselves. Best of luck with all of your exposure, whether it's over there for DFS or on the prop side. Check out the Patreon page for all the content that we showed throughout the live stream. It'll be the rest of my prop content whenever that's posted, as well as all the different showdown sheets and DFS sheets for the rest of the fall swing. So we've got that. We've also got NFL content that's going to be dropping tomorrow morning. If you guys are looking for the main slate preview, that is when that'll be dropping. And around 4 live stream out there for showdown and props as well. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of that to come. And I'll catch you guys for all of that content.